Good morning, everyone. I am just unusually happy to see you all this morning. It's really, really nice to see you. I'm the Reverend Ellen Quaadgras, minister here at South Church, serving in co-leadership with Kirsten Hunter, our director of Lifespan Ministry, and serving in co-ministry with all of you and you. Welcome to this time to exhale, to rest, to get nourished for the journey. Find some peace and gather courage. Welcome to this place to find compatriots, find each other, support one another, and find ways together to serve a world that needs some ministering. Welcome to this sanctuary, to this time, to this place where this whole month we focus on repair. And today we ask ourselves, in a world where fundamental truths are once again being thrown into question, what does it look like not only to seek truth, but to be true ourselves? What does it look like to find your true north and let it guide you when road signs might be pointing in the wrong direction? What does it look like to be true with yourself and with loved ones and with people who may disagree with you? You will find in the back and downstairs on the bulletin board an updated post-election edition collector's item version of the spiritual decathlon practice card. Don't miss out on that. They're in the back. They'll also be downstairs. It includes centering quotes on the back and links to the website with both soothing and inspiring invitation to practice in unsettling times. I'm grateful to be here today with Chris George, our worship associate, Veda, Phelps, who will be sharing some words about the meaning of stewardship. It's not Andrew McGeorge as listed in your order of service. Susan Adams will serenade us on the piano, and Cathy, and sometimes Susan will be leading us in hymns. Ben Abbott is wrangling tech in the back, and Jen DB will be offering our time for all ages, after which children are invited to go downstairs and explore our monthly theme together. Parents, please join them on the way down to sign them in if you have not already. You are all invited downstairs for coffee hour and the silent auction after the service, where I invite you to ask someone you do not know well this question: if your emotional well-being had a repair kit, what would that be? Chocolate, a cozy blanket, a playlist, something else? Or maybe you could talk about a favorite thing you've repaired: an old mug, a patched quilt, a put together friendship. You have a little time to think about it. A couple of announcements in our order of service. Families Together will be happening this Saturday on the 23rd. It is free babysitting for parents and a free night of fun for kids. Contact Jen Del Deo-Barry afterwards, or you can send an email to info@, which is on the back of your order of service, for information. Also, right after the service at 11:45, parents of teens or young adults are invited to join Kirsten Hunter for an opportunity to connect and reflect. I invite you to take a look at all the other announcements in here, and we also have one announcement from our ABC team, and then I'll come back for one more piece. Anita.
Just a quick announcement. A brief update. Our annual budget campaign is at 65% of participation, and our goal is 100% participation. So if you would like to pledge today, you can or if you've lost your financial commitment form, you can come and see me right after service. I'll be downstairs, and we have more forms downstairs, as well as if you would like and be all fancy and new age, you can use the code here to make your pledge, as well as reaching out to Christine Sawyer, and the email address is info@South Church. On the back of your service. So those are many different opportunities to make your pledge.
Thank you, Anita. There are large print hymnals and listening devices in the back, and an usher can help you with either one. Please silence your cell phone if you have one. And before we fully begin, let us take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we gather. South Church stands on the traditional ancestral territories of the Abenaki and Pennacook peoples. These lands were taken without consent. We honor the enduring connection of these indigenous communities to this region, their stewardship of it across generations, and the resilience of their cultures and traditions despite historic and ongoing impacts of colonization. Let us commit ourselves to seeking truth and reconciliation and acknowledging this past, while also working toward a more just and equitable future for all who share this part of the world now. And we have our testimonial.
Good morning. My name is Veda Kiper Phelps. I'm a worship associate. I work in the nursery downstairs, and I've been coming to this church with my family since I was 12. In 8th and 9th grade, the coming of age and senior youth programs left me with a deeper understanding of why my family spent so much time in this sanctuary. Before this, I was a little iffy about the whole church thing. I loved the snacks, but I was shy and sleepy on Sunday mornings and didn't really want to go. However, my parents lugged me through these doors because they knew I would meet tons of impactful mentors, be enriched by the open-mindedness of the discourse in the classrooms, and create memories with the kids whom I shared these experiences with. I've now been on 3 senior youth trips, and each one has colossally changed my life in a different way. I have made bestest friends and seen powerful sights. My brain chemistry has been altered by every new place, every new perspective, and every new piece of information. I don't know who I'd be without this learning, but I know my mind would be a lot more closed and my heart would be a lot less full. I have found a community where I can be myself, and as a teenager in a world moving very fast, that is a rare treasure. I wouldn't have been able to go on any of these trips without the financial aid of this community. These programs that have sculpted my identity, provided me with a support system, and have taught me infinite lessons would not exist without this generosity. I owe this huge part of myself to South Church, to the people around me each Sunday, and for that I'm endlessly grateful. Every donation is impactful and so appreciated, from the oldest to the very youngest in this community. Thank you for participating in any way you can.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name. Will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go.
As we light our chalice here, we invite people watching at home to light a candle or chalice of their own. We light this chalice today with these words from Sarah Gibb Millspaw. In times of light and times of darkness, may this small flame kindle what is good in us and in the world. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in reciting the mission statement printed in your order of service. At South Church, we nurtured spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. The theme for November is repair. And as I was thinking about words to share on the topic, I remembered back to a time of turmoil in my life in December of 1970. The Vietnam War was still raging, and much of my emotional time was being spent trying to stop the war. My family was living out of the country, and I was enrolled at a law school in Washington, D.C. It was my first year, and I was following through on an old personal vision of becoming a lawyer that would work for clean air and clean water. I knew that this nation's model of equity relied on presenting the arguments from two sides, and from these arguments would rise justice, like the phoenix from the ashes. I also knew that to be a good lawyer, I would need to be able to argue a case from either side. As I practiced this approach of being able to argue both sides, I find that I didn't like how my critical brain was developing. It seemed rudderless. It seemed without conscience. It seemed opportunistic and mercenary. In addition, it was a time in my life where I found it hard to make friends. I felt isolated. One Saturday night, I went to the law library to read an article that had been put on reserve by the professor. When I checked it out, I found that someone had torn the pages out of the book so that no one else would be able to complete the assignment. As I look back on this time, I realize I had many of the symptoms of depression. Exams were approaching, and as I prepared for the contract law exam, I stayed up all night, cramming and drinking coffee. At 5 a.m, I decided to lie down for an hour and then get up and cram one last time with my notes. As I dozed off, I entered an unusual dreamland. I was somewhere in outer space, and approaching me was the character of Ray Watson from the 1963 comedy show, My Favorite Martian. He was the one who had the antenna who could deploy from his head there. He was carrying a large vase and gesturing for me to grab it in both my hands. When I grabbed it with my hands, there was an electrical current that was running through the vase, and for a time I couldn't put it down. As soon as I did, I woke from the dream. What I found was that my whole body was drenched in water. like someone had splashed a pail of water all over me. When I got up, my world had changed. Somehow I knew that pursuing a law degree was not my path. The relief from this was huge, or as Kirsten would say, epic. I stayed on to finish the first year as my father requested, but I knew that pursuing a degree in law was not what I sought in life. And although it took some time to come to the conclusion about what I did wish to pursue, knowing this about my life and my pursuits was a recentering that brought a great comfort. What I took away from this was that even in the midst of dark times, there are opportunities for healing and repair. I believe these opportunities hold true for us today. And now, please rise in body or spirit to join in our opening hymn, number 298, verses 1, 4, and 5.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Suffer the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and place the sublime. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Okay, I would love to invite all children and teens and even adults who would like to hear a story in a cozy space up here. Come on forward. It is nice to see so many faces today. I have a wisdom tale for us today that comes from Ethiopia. A long time ago, fire, water, truth, and falsehood all lived in the same big house together. And they respected each other pretty well. They also kept their distance. Like truth and falsehood always sat on opposite sides of the room. And fire always made sure to stay out of water's path. And that was great for a while. And then one day, the four of them went hunting together, and they found a huge number of cattle. And so they gathered up the cattle, they rounded them up, and they started to steer them toward their village, herd them home. And while they were traveling back, Truth said, I think that when we get back, we should divide these cattle among the four of us. That feels like a fair way to divide our bounty. And the others agreed, except for Falsehood. And Falsehood kept quiet at first, but as they traveled on, Falsehood moved over near water. And Falsehood whispered to water, "You know, you are way more powerful than fire. And I don't think fire deserves a share of these cattle. All you have to do is get rid of fire, and that would mean more for each of us." And water couldn't resist this. So water snuck up and flowed forward over fire, and there was bubble and steam until fire went completely out. And so they continued on, and water was doing the math of how many cattle water would get now. And meanwhile, Falsehood moved over to Truth and was like, "Did you see that? Did you see what water did to our dear, dear, warm-hearted friend, Fire? Water murdered Fire. We are in real danger. I think we should go up to the top of the mountain with these cattle so they can graze in the high field where water can't go." And so they moved toward the mountains and started going up the slopes. And as water tried to go up the slope, water kept just spilling down, falling over itself, because water could not go uphill. And you can still see that today, the water tumbling down the mountainside. And eventually, Truth and Falsehood and all the cattle get up to the top of the mountain. And then Falsehood said in a big voice, "I am more powerful than you. I will be your master, you will be my servant, and these cattle all belong to me." And Truth stood and said, "I will not be your servant." And they argued about this for a while. And then they asked Wind to settle this dispute for them. But Wind didn't know the answer. So Wind flew out all around the world and asked the people, "Who is more powerful, Truth or Falsehood?" And some people said, "Well, one word of falsehood can destroy truth. And falsehood is easier to sell to the masses." Other people said, "But truth is more powerful because truth is like a candle at night. It has the potential to be the light that drives out darkness. And falsehood doesn't have any of its own substance." So Wind blew back to the top of the mountain where Truth and Falsehood were. And the wind said, "Truth and falsehood have equal power, and it will be like that forever." But just then, Spirit spoke from somewhere, and it surprised Truth and Falsehood and even Wind, this voice. And Spirit said, "No, they are not equal. And you can know this by taking one of them away. If you take away truth, falsehood will be strong for a while, but after a while, falsehood will crumble and stumble over itself and lose its power. But if you take away falsehood, truth will stand for all time, like a bright light at the top of the mountain as a beacon forever." And so, truth really has more power. And now, we will go downstairs, and you think that you know where your room is, but let's see if that is actually true today.
During the month of November, our collection will be shared with Mainspring. Mainspring is the Seacoast Social Service Collective serving Seacoast, New Hampshire, and Maine in building a stronger community by providing all citizens with the resources to thrive. Through a centralized and collaborative model incorporating many area social service partners, Mainspring offers a dignified, efficient, and effective model of care that empowers individuals to navigate a pathway out of poverty. Please give as you are able. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
This coming Wednesday is Transgender Day of Remembrance. For our time of prayer, let us reflect together on what our trans and non-binary siblings can teach us about being true. Let us gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of love, Spirit of God, Spirit of expansiveness. This week, we hold in our hearts those who have felt something, known something deep within themselves, embodied something brave and beautiful, and against all odds declared, "This is who I am." Thank you, dear trans and non-binary siblings, for your courage and for being the precious and irreplaceable people that you are. Thank you for finding your way to yourself, even when the path is hard and fraught with resistance. As we anticipate Transgender Day of Remembrance, we honor and mourn those who've lost their lives to violence and hatred and fear. We grieve the irreplaceable spirits taken from this world, each with their own beautiful color and courage. In this morning, we must also reckon with the forces of hate and misunderstanding that still surround us. In the heaviness and the layers of injustice, prejudice rather, and the daily acts of disrespect, may we not turn away, but commit ourselves to justice and love. And when any of us feel threatened in the wilderness of the world, may the Spirit awaken us.
Wake now our senses and feel the earth call.
Help us loosen our grip on what feels safe or certain.
Feel the deep power of being in all.
Tune us into our senses.
Keep with the web of creation your vow.
May we awaken into the rhythm of life, our bodies, and our connection with the sacred lives all around us.
Giving, receiving, as love shows us how.
Inspire us with the brave hearts of the past and the present.
Wake now our vision of ministry clear.
May we live courageously and joyfully and wholeheartedly.
Brighten my pathway with radiance here.
May we defend the dignity of every soul.
Mingle my calling with all who would share.
May we all embody the vibrant and beautiful diversity of life.
Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Spirit of love, Spirit of holy expansiveness, guide us in our work, and may we move forward with compassion and truth and unwavering hope. Amen. I invite you now into a time of personal reflection or meditation. You may also light a candle during this time if you like, to honor a joy or a sorrow that is in you today. If you like, please come forward around the outside and to the front as the music begins. for every candle lit, every joy held in the heart, every sorrow expressed in the depths of your soul. We hold it all together. Amen. I was on a Zoom call with a friend of mine last Friday. He was wearing a t-shirt which said, "Hang in there," right above this big yellow smiley face, and I thought, that's nice. A bit of a platitude, but at least he's trying to be encouraging. When he got up, I was able to read the rest of the t-shirt, which I could now see said, "Hang in there, smiley face, it's just going to get worse." And I remembered my friend has a dark sense of humor. But maybe a little dark humor has its place when the news ranges from unsettling to a little dark, at least according to the news outlets I'm reading. Maybe it's okay to say that. People have told me they are feeling such a range of things, from disorientation to denial, fury to dread, bitterness, pessimism, defeat. There's been a shock to the system and uncertainty about what is to come. And as the level of disinformation begins again to rise, I ask myself, when truth is hard to find, how can we be true or become more true ourselves? We opened our doors last Wednesday here to anyone who wanted to come and spend some time in this wide, open, spacious sanctuary that has held so much hope and grief and righteous anger, as well as its share of fear and trembling, triumphs and tears over so many years. This historic space where generations have rallied for justice and freedom and mutual care, which holds stories connected to abolition and civil rights and marriage equality and so much striving for justice that was not yet at that time. We held our staff meeting on the portico that day, and as you wandered in and out, there was such feeling in the air. And at some point as we met, someone mentioned the Rage Room in Portsmouth down the street, where you can actually go and break things on purpose. As we kept talking, we realized there really needs to be a grief room as well to hold the tears. And then we thought, we can't just be in anger and sorrow all the time. We need joy. So let's add a joy room. How do we do that? Maybe a bubble maker, dancing, a disco ball. And then someone mentioned crepes and ice cream, and we decided we really needed to add a crepe and ice cream room. It wasn't clear if that should be part of the joy room or a separate room, but it really seemed like a good idea to add it. It does seem to me that feeling our feelings, remembering joy, and waking our senses to some kind of deliciousness are all ways to help us center, be more human, more real, so that we can show up more true. And there's a lot to show up for right now. This sanctuary, which holds our deep and powerful history, also holds our stories right here. At last Sunday's listening circle, one of our beloved members gave me permission to share with you that she went to visit her grandson recently, whose father happens to be a Trump supporter. When she and her grandson were on a walk, he looked up to her looked up at her and said to her, "Grandma, are you one of the bad people?" I've been thinking about what this time is like for families. And I was thinking about Dick and BJ Lates, who also gave me permission to tell this story of their foster son from Cambodia, whose father told him to run away into the forest to escape from the Khmer Rouge. This young boy, through grit and grace and perseverance, somehow made it to Thailand, to a Buddhist monastery, and then to this country as a refugee before he finally landed in the home of Dick and BJ Lates. I've been thinking about what it's like to be an immigrant in this country right now. And I've been thinking about our beautiful young people, our young adults, and our adults who identify as LGBTQ+, but particularly as trans and non-binary, and how much is landing on them right now. I have been thinking about all of them too. And of course, there are so many more stories than that. Where is that grief room? And where's that anger room? And how can we be true for all the people we care about? At the men's group on Wednesday, Kirsten made the wise observation that in this time there are both political and spiritual dimensions for us to wrestle with. There are real political threats posed by this election result, and there are real actions that we can take to protect against them. On that day, we talked about many of them, like donating to organizations that support our most marginalized, strengthening the bumpers of the system, and acting locally, and acting locally, and acting locally. The group had great ideas, and I have heard great ideas from others here too. And there are podcasts and articles and videos going around with other very practical things that you can do. And then there's the spiritual, which to me is all about relationship with ourselves, with others, with this world in which we live. That's more personal and less tangible, but also, I believe, ultimately much more powerful. If the spiritual is what holds our common humanity, where the deepest solution ultimately lies. Thinking about what my colleague, Reverend Molly Hoosh-Gordon, spoke about last week, offering a longer, larger perspective. That while it feels like the world is ending, the world is always ending and beginning, and ending and beginning again. She mentioned that hell is other people, but so is heaven. And that when under stress, our human tendency is to simplify to black and white or right or wrong or good people or bad people thinking. And what we need is a queering of this moment. I love that. This is a non-binary time, she said. There's an invitation to expansive, bigger thinking. We can widen our view, deepen our view in this time when division is palpable, and hold complexity even when it's hard. But so important. Because the divide can be so personally divisive, and learning how to work together across all divides seems more urgent now than ever. Building bridges is so crucial, and it's hard, particularly with those closest to us. I heard a story about a married couple on This American Life recently. He was a Republican, she was a Democrat. They became best friends, talked about everything, fell in love, got married very happily until 2016, when their stories of what's fundamentally true began to diverge. Eventually, they grew so far apart, they actually thought about divorce. And then they found a news magazine that includes perspectives from both sides of the aisle. And as their stories began to overlap again, they were able to talk from a common place, where before he had been unwilling to entertain certain facts. Something about the way this magazine presented its information made him change his mind, and they were able to talk again. And what intrigues me about this story is not the couple or the magazine, but its editor, who somehow managed to bridge this apparently unbridgeable divide. How did he do it? The podcast talks a little bit about how he explicitly holds everyone on all sides with respect. He does not dismiss any viewpoint, calls nothing fake news or conspiracy theories. He addresses each question everyone has at face value, assumes all his readers want to do right, and speaks to them from that place, sharing his perspective and the facts he's uncovered. In other words, he sees their inherent worth and dignity. He sees each one of them. And he offers his truth by being true himself. He's building trust by being trustworthy, making something possible that otherwise would not be. And I appreciate that story because that information and factual divide feels like one of the most confounding parts of what is happening right now on every side. It's like each of us are saying, can't you see? It's this. I know it's this. Let me explain it again. And then they do the same thing, and then we do the same thing, and they do the same thing. Which is why I so appreciate Chris's story, because that's it, isn't it? There is this age-old idea that we can rationally debate the merits of each case, and that we have a set of logical arguments over here and a set of logical arguments over here. You can just compare the two, and the truth wins. But of course, the truth doesn't always win. The evidence is not always prepared accurately. The judge does not always decide correctly. Arguments are sometimes flawed. The decision maker is sometimes biased, whether that's in the courtroom or at the ballot box. Sometimes there's just so many layers to what's real. There is no way to address them all at once, and justice and truth are impossible to serve. But back to Chris's story. Set during the Vietnam War, the country was divided. And it sounds a little bit like he himself was divided, at least about his vocation. And listening to it, I felt there was this pressure and intensity, and he mentioned depression. It sounds a bit like where many of us are at. And then he has this dream, there's this antenna, a tuning in, and a shock to the system. Uncomfortable, electrifying, but also something crucial falls into place. And there he is, left holding this empty vessel, spacious, open, roomy, waiting to be filled with something that was not yet. It reminded me of times when I have been in conflict with parts of myself, and then in the midst of growing awareness or pressure, there's some tipping point. A surface cracks, there's a shock to my system. It's terrifying and sweaty, but looking back, often something has fallen into place. And there is new spaciousness and depth and new freedom. My decision to come out in my 20s was like that. My decision to rethink everything about my life and go into ministry in my 40s was like that. My decision to work a 12-step program was like that. Not necessarily logical. Some different kind of intelligence was at work. It was not about reason, but I have come to find these choices were wise. These days, I am a little suspicious of purely logical, well-reasoned arguments, including, frankly, my own. I can see much more clearly these days how my own thinking is an intricate weave of not only logic, but also feelings and hopes and self-interest and rationalizations. And when I look at our electorate writ large, I think I may not be alone in that kind of mix. This is not exactly reassuring, as it seems to be that self-interest and rationalizing played out in unawareness is what seems to give the authoritarian playbook a foothold. I don't want to say that word, but here we go. Together, I can do this. It seems to give the authoritarian playbook a foothold, not just here, but also back in my own country, the Netherlands, as well as other countries too. Here's how it seems to work. First, upend the facts that bind us together, disintegrate the fabric of our shared story, like what happened with that couple I described earlier. And then, as you create confusion, distrust, and unease, play on people's biases and fears. Create a wilderness of insecurity, and then set yourself up as the solution. See what riles people up, tears them apart, and then grow your own power. But here's a hopeful thought. The same conditions that call out people willing to distort the truth in that way also calls out people who point to deeper ones. Hard times may produce demagogues, but they also forge leaders like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, who emerged out of their own dark times, who tuned into something greater than themselves and invite us all to do the same. And my mind keeps taking me back even further to the life of Harriet Tubman, abolitionist, freedom fighter, and badass, who led countless underground railroad expeditions through countless dangers, trusting in little more than grit and grace and her own deep intuitive sense, of which she had a great deal. She had a shock to her system as a child, a heavy object thrown at her by a slaveholder that led to a traumatic brain injury and lifelong episodes of painful seizures, but also to visions and dreams that guided her, to a depth of connection to something greater than logic or prudence, which fueled her resilience and allowed her to forge paths through the treacherous wilderness of 1850s humanity, as well as the literally treacherous forests through which she led others to freedom. Again, and again, and again. So, how can we be more true? We can feel our feelings, our rage, our grief, and our joy. We can wake our senses, savor what's good, let deliciousness in. We can take action to protect, starting locally, starting now. Talk to one another about what you can do, tiny things matter to other people and to you. In the sometimes treacherous wilderness of unfolding humanity, trust yourself, your intuition, trust your true north. And build trust in your relationships by being true yourself. Listen when you can, learn what you need to, love as you're able, hold arguments loosely, and let something unfold. What kind of greater intelligence might be at work beyond them? And may we keep coming together, finding each other, finding our wisdom, fighting for freedom in this spacious, open, roomy sanctuary that is always waiting to be filled with something that is not yet. May it be so. Let us rise in body or in spirit and sing our closing hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the rill, the far of him that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
After the benediction, which I'm about to share, and after the postlude, if you can resist the urge to run right down to the silent auction, I invite you to take a moment to greet one another, say hello, and perhaps even a word or two about what helps you find your true north, or what helps you repair it, or you can talk about the weather. Spirits, wake me up and tune me in to what this moment needs with this person in this circumstance, in this wilderness we call life. Inspire us through the brave hearts of the past and present to live joyfully and wholeheartedly, with bubbles and disco balls and all our senses alive. May we defend the dignity of every soul as we embody lives of joy and passion, and protect the vibrant and beautiful everything that is this planet. May it be so. Amen.